you a question. Yes,
Previously on Woke AF NewZ.
what would have happened to my people
I just did. So what
had the South won?
I
have no idea.
Work for you? No.
What would have happened to my people had the South won? But that's like saying, had the South won? They would have been shipped back to Africa because Lincoln said that he wanted to do that. Exactly. He is on record saying, had the South won.
Hold on. Think common sense.
It was on its way out as it was.
So why do you carry that flag?
Because this is my heritage. My family fought to save their farm under this flag.
Who was working that farm?
My family was.
Who was working the farm?
They were poor. Do you know how much a slave cost back in? Cost back in. How much a slave cost back in?
Gotcha, bitch. What's your name?
Nasty nigga.
Kunta Kinte.
I love the poorly educated.
White pop.
First, there was Barbecue Becky, then Permit Patty. Now social media has dubbed this guy Pool Patrol Paul.
Who are you? Do you live here?
It's illegal to have a charcoal grill in the park here.
So excuse me, ma'am.
I'm uncomfortable.
Okay, you can be uncomfortable.
Go ahead.
Moving? Let's stop. Is your boyfriend here? Is your baby daddy here?
Excuse me, you're invading my private. Look. African American.
Black. No, I'm not African American. I'm black.
Girl, I got you, girl. I'm white. I'm girl white.
If you have hate in your heart, let it out.
She calling police on an 8-year-old little girl. You
Lady Lily just pulled a gun because we out here and didn't have reservation.
Listen, ma'am.
If you want to come into my building.
It's not your building. You're not the owner.
Legally selling water without a permit? Yeah.
on my property.
It's not your property.
Away down south in Dixie.
Don't ever do that again. You look pretty stupid on video.
Nobody cares. I'm white and I'm hot. I'm white and I'm hot.
Of all nights, this just happened to me tonight. Why?
Why is this happening? Why?
Okay, good. Let's eat.
Good day, fam. As we are now in the month of April, the coronavirus has done something we've never witnessed in our lifetime, and that is the near complete shutdown of the world. We're talking transportation, schools, movies, commerce, life in general, to the point that one would feel as if nothing is happening anyway. Of course, that couldn't be further from the truth, as many governors have actively shown remarkable leadership, filling in lieu of the absentee feds by simply doing the opposite of everything this guy says.
As the disease spreads, if it spreads,
it's not so much a question of if this will happen anymore.
we have it so well under control.
It's likely that this virus will cause a pandemic.
You're shaking a lot of hands today, taking a lot of close pictures. Are you protecting yourself at all?
Not at all.
How are you staying?
We're rapidly developing a vaccine.
But anybody that needs a test can have a test.
We can't rely on a vaccine.
When can you guarantee that every single American who needs a test will be able to have a test? What's the date of that?
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility.
Americans were scared, though. I guess nearly 200 dead, 14,000 who are sick, millions, as you witnessed, who are scared right now. What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter.
January 31st, I instituted the ban. Joe Biden went crazy. He said, you don't need the ban. He didn't go crazy. Like he didn't even know what the hell the ban was. But he didn't go crazy. But he did say.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant by injection inside or or almost a cleaning. It is fake news. It's more than fake news. It's corrupt news. We've done this right, and we really have done this right. Feeling good. I just don't want to be doing, I don't know. This will end. This will end. This is voluntary. I don't think I'm going to be doing it. The problem is the press doesn't cover it the way it should be.
And instead, listening to these guys.
This coronavirus will go well beyond this season into next season.
Practicing social distancing, covering their mouths, staying at home, and consequently making Tiger King and this guy.
Hey, I'm gonna stick these in my nose.
So funny.
The most watched shows during an almost nationwide quarantine. And while this may be fun, games, and extreme boredom for the majority of the nation, it couldn't be further from carefree if you're an essential frontline worker from the several different industries, respect levels, and unacceptable pay disparities as they're asked and ordered to put their lives on the line so that our greater society can continue unabated and not lose more than we already have.
If you never, ever feeling any other time in the world is appropriate to have compassion for each other, right now is the time that we should all have compassion.
The number of courageous people stepping up across the nation is beyond commendable. And in a time like this, the country should find no issue putting trivial things that divide us aside in order to focus on the bigger, more selfless goal of beating a global pandemic. But let's not forget, this is the United States of America, where anytime enough sane, selfless people come together for the greater good, there are always some that will do the opposite by bringing up some selfish BS agenda and thus make the sane masses look on without remorse when karma finally comes around like this.
I mean, I like them. Don't try to garner sympathy from us. I really do like them. But her, there's something about her. You know what I'm saying? But Meghan Markle, nobody feels sorry for you. You knew what you were signing up for, girl. Don't try to garner sympathy from us. Sympathy from us. Sympathy from us. How you doing? Halloween costume contest. We do it every year. It's always a lot of fun. Let's get started. Our first caress.
Yep. Which takes us to this week's self-absorbed WTF BS agenda promoting white people recipient, none other than Governor Tate Reeves of the not-so-great state of Mississippi. Someone who has risen to great power by following his ancestors' lead and stepping on countless others to raise a dwindling minority of alternative fact, poorly educated, low self-esteem, entitlement-crazed, cherry-picking, Bible-thumping folk to heights that for too many reasons would make any sane person question the rationale behind their political leanings, if not their overall mental stability.
What is this? Where are we? We're in the state of Mississippi. I don't care for the government. They don't show me anything.
You get food stamps.
Yeah, but I think I deserve food stamps. I have no employment.
So something's not working here.
That's
Voting
right.
Republican hasn't worked for you.
But it could.
But it hasn't.
It hasn't, but it could.
Why is the poorest state the most conservative state?
We would rather go broke and die hungry than to give up our moral beliefs.
I feel like that voting God and voting faith is more important to me than voting for free money or voting for a handout.
We're not going to be pushed over. We lost the war. That's true. But we're not going to be pushed around. We're not going to back down from what we believe. And like the tag on the front of my truck says, the South will rise again.
Surprisingly enough, Governor Reeves' supporter stability was tested this week when he broke the fundamental MAGA rule, and that was to never, ever, ever, ever listen to any expert from academia before consulting your own comment. Excuse me. Conservative experts who upon request threw themselves into the fray combating this COVID-19 virus with everything they had.
Because we have... In the name of Jesus! Oh, thank you, Jesus.
If you feel that a statewide lockdown should be occurring, then you should put yourself on individual lockdown. If that's what you believe is best for you and your family, then that's fine. That is not the guidance that we are getting from our experts.
Almighty, strong, south wind.
Well,
I execute judgment on you, COVID-19. I execute judgment on you, Satan, you destroyer, you killer, you get out, we break your power, you get off this nation. I demand judgment on you. I demand a vaccination to come immediately.
Mississippi's never going to be China. Mississippi's never going to be North Korea.
Heat! Burn this thing! In the name of Jesus! Satan, you bow your knee! You fall on your face! I call you done! COVID-19!
We understand that people are nervous. We understand that people are scared.
I call you gone! COVID-19!
well, they had except for common sense. Needless to say, none of that worked. The governor praying.
From 1 Corinthians.
Praying.
Let's begin by going to the Lord in prayer.
Praying.
31st chapter, the 6th verse.
Praying.
I actually have 2 Bibles with me this morning.
And praying it away didn't work. Thus, once finally out of the conservative snake oil options, Governor Reeves begrudgingly turned to his last resort weapon, one that too many of his kinfolk have always questioned and mistrusted: science. Telling his citizens to do the unthinkable.
I have just signed a state of emergency. To that end, we have asked for each of our citizens to do things that may be hard.
By practicing social distancing.
You have heard the term social distancing. That is one of the most important things that you can do that may be hard. Stay away from large gatherings. That means sports and even church tomorrow.
And on April 1st enacting a stay-at-home order for the state of Mississippi, which actually came with praise, as it would ultimately save lives. But that praise was short-lived, as 2 days later he marched back in front of the cameras to rally his dejected anti-science basis concerns by giving them a revisionist historian's wet dream and proclaiming the entire month of April during a global pandemic in the state with the most unequipped and underfunded healthcare out of all 50 states, one that also boasts a whopping 40% population of African descent, to honor Confederate Heritage Month. Because nothing screams Southern hospitality like using a global pandemic to tell everyone to stay indoors one day and then the next asking your minority population, who represents one of the most adversely mistreated groups in the history of Mississippi, to consider honoring an evil way of life that later chose to become the largest terrorist urgency ever to attack the United States of America. One which enslaved, kidnapped, molested, raped, murdered millions more innocents than ISIL, yes, I said ISIL, until their ultimate defeat at the hands of armies in which a beautiful sense of poetic justice included some 200,000 men and women that belong to the same 40% of the current population Governor Reeves purposefully insulted, demeaned, and is failing to honor. Special shout out to Harriet Tubman and all the countless soldiers that fought for both their and our freedom. Thank you. Now back to our not-so-lovable Confederate sympathizer, Governor Reeves, who had no problem stepping over centuries of crimes against humanity to proclaim, "God bless the Confederate soldier," many of whom are buried in unmarked and unknown mass graves throughout the South. May he or his sacrifices never be forgotten. Funny he brings up mass graves and things forgotten without mentioning one of the largest mass graves in the world, the Atlantic Ocean, where in recent times research into this leg of the African Holocaust has produced damning, if not jaw-dropping information depicting the evil millions upon millions of kidnapped Africans endured only to later receive an eternity of forced bondage scattered across thousands of miles in what Europeans claim to be the New World. New World while ignoring millions of inhabitants already there. Historian, scholar, and Professor Henry Louis Gates Jr. wrote, Between 1525 and 1866, according to the Transatlantic Slave Trade Database, 12.5 million Africans were shipped to the New World, and worst yet, only 10.7 million survived the dreaded Middle Passage, disembarking in North America, the Caribbean, and South America.
The last thing we want to do. We don't want to scare anybody. Yeah, we don't want to do anything to scare your children. That's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to scare anybody.
Going further into the whitewashed horrors and evil that conservative revisionists like Governor Reeves,
going to the Lord in prayer,
Nikki Haley,
here is this guy that comes out with his manifesto holding the Confederate flag and had just hijacked everything that people thought of. And we don't have hateful people in South Carolina. There's always the small minority that's always going to be there, but you know, people saw it as service and sacrifice and heritage.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson is facing some backlash after referring to slaves as immigrants.
That's what America is about. A land of dreams and opportunity. There were other immigrants who came here in the bottom of slave ships, worked even longer, even harder for less.
Going further into the whitewashed horrors and evil that conservative revisionists like Governor Reeves, Nikki Haley, and even Ben Carson have normalized over the centuries, the New York Times penned a piece called Remembrance of Slave Ancestors Lost to Sea by Michelle Merrill that goes on to state, quote, many historians note that the numbers of enslaved Africans who died at sea were so great that sharks learned to follow the slave routes because they fed on the bodies thrown overboard. In other words, while observing a shelter-in-place order in the month of April, Governor Reeves wants his state, which nearly 40% are of African descent and the descendants of enslaved masses, to objectively weigh the Confederate insurgency's mistakes and successes as if the Confederacy and its BS backwoods antebellum black mirror racist evil way of life deserves a second look rather than complete and total damnation. As if some kind of disingenuous BS learning exercise. A disingenuous BS learning exercise because Governor Reeves isn't a difficult person to read. Oh, no. His countless skeletons keep jumping out of his past, forcing him to either run away, deflect them, or in this case, fully embrace them. Which would make someone think his understanding of what led up to the bloodiest conflict on U.S. soil had nothing to do with centuries of crimes against humanity, but was really just something trivial, like a misunderstanding between two out-of-touch sisters.
I will literally don't ever come at that. Don't stop. Okay, sleeping. Guys, stop!
Nobody really likes Courtney. Some other noteworthy skeletons that Reeves totes around when not cherry-picking from his Bibles are his long ties to pro-Confederate groups like his college fraternity Kappa Alpha, a frat whose proud spiritual leader is the infamous traitor, serial rapist, and mass murderer General Robert E. Lee. Someone I'm sure a young Reeves hoped watch over him approvingly, while he and his frat boys from Kappa Alpha would regularly dress up in blackface and don Afro wigs and use Confederate flags for their ties. Or that time they dressed up as natives in blackface. Or during formal evenings when they don their best Confederate soldier attire and parade through the campus and meet actual people of African descent, which somehow resulted in altercations.
Get the hell out!
Get out!
That the Kappa Alpha state president would later clear up, quoting, "The frat is getting a bad rap. This is tradition. And let's not forget, this is nothing racial." Which is something I'm sure Governor Reeves has carried with him up to today, maybe even as he spoke at an event for the Sons of Confederate Veterans, a neo-Confederate organization that claims the Civil War, and I quote, "was not about slavery." Short story long, in the state of Mississippi, with its vast lands, valuable resources, and 2.9 million citizens hoping for a better tomorrow, instead of pulling everyone together and preparing for the modern-day plague, which will cause the deaths of countless Mississippians in his state that is ranked last in health care, Republican Governor Tate Reeves chose to waste valuable time ignoring the present while praising the past, a hideous and dark past. He chose to listen to a demagoguery
strong,
rather than listen to science.
It's not so much a question of if this will happen anymore.
To wait on cues from the clueless.
This is voluntary. I don't think I'm going to be doing it.
Instead of listening to his own people. To trivialize unthinkable crimes against humanity, destruction, and scars that have lasted centuries, while their heirs of that bygone era are once again being victimized and left wondering when others will stop praising what we all know is wrong. Lastly, he chose not to push forward during these scary times. No, Governor Reeves chose to hold back everyone. He did all of this during a global pandemic that is killing up to 4,500 of his fellow countrymen as we speak. Yet he wants you to think about the unmarked graves that belong to a once demented, dark, and mistakenly proud army that was responsible for the continued enslavement of countless millions, and before their evil was done would claim the lives of over 700,000 United States of America citizens. Too much? Well, let me put this in a way that Governor Reeves will understand. What you and your conservative whitewash revisionist con men pariah want us to consider honoring is unmarked graves of an extremist death to America, flag-waving, evil, anti-Christian, racist, rapist, Sharia law caliphate that started a war by firing on innocent United States of America soldiers at Fort Sumter and wouldn't give up their evil ways of rape, molestation, torture, and killing till 700,000 more United States of America soldiers and citizens were dead. Which, in closing, for these reasons and too many more, is why our daftly dark dunce of a Governor Tate Reeves, you, sir, get this week's Why People Award. We here at Woke AF NewZ would clap for you, but let's be honest. The only way that will happen is when you and any of your Confederate apologist sympathizers and vile people are no longer in power. May your names go down in infamy. We here at Woke AF NewZ hope you enjoyed that piece and understand that many of the subjects we speak to may be a lot to bite off, as sometimes we only skim the surface, choosing to focus on the micro subjects rather than the macro textbook overviews. That being said, if you'd like to hear more, learn more, or go deeper with any of the subjects we touch on, then please stay tuned. In our future programming, we'll continue to discuss everything from pop culture to world events, local news, historically underreported stories, including some things that might just make you happy. So, be on the lookout for new content in the coming weeks, as there's really too much not to speak about. And lastly, if you'd like to help with the content like this, if you'd like to keep it coming, then please feel free to comment, like, subscribe, or become a Patreon donor, because we gotta eat. Regardless, we're gonna keep doing these. And until next time, peace, love, and God bless. See you around.
The answer is they would have remained in slavery. The answer is they would not have been free. The problem is that is the answer.
That's the answer. That's the answer you're wanting. That is the answer that you're wanting.
You are attempting to rewrite history.
No, we are not trying to rewrite history. You're the one changing it.